The 1920s had a massive amount of hit songs and now famous standards in jazz, blues, pop, and country music. But there were only a handful that exploded in popularity and captured people's imaginations so much that they became pop culture sensations. The song I'll be talking about in this video was one such song, but it was not a ballad, it was not a dance song, it was about a piece of fruit. A very popular genre of records in the 1910s and 1920s was novelty songs. Pretty much since the beginning of recorded music, every so often a novelty song would become a big hit for a short time. Some examples are Katie in 1918, Oh by Jingo from 1919, and Barney Google in 1923. As successful as those were, nothing would compare to the king of all novelty songs. Yes, We Have No Bananas from 1923. It was so popular, in fact, that it might even be considered a craze in itself, and made bananas into a kind of proto-meme. The song took America by storm, so much so that in an August 12, 1923 article, the New York Times claimed that 97.3% of all Americans were listening to it. I have absolutely no idea where that number came from or if it was just a hyperbolic joke, but that's beside the point. The point is that it was huge. I'm sure quite a few people who follow this channel are familiar with this song. There were many versions made at the height of the craze, but I'm personally most familiar with the recording by Benny Kruger.
Yes, we have an old banana. We have an old banana today.
Other versions were made by, among others, Billy Jones, Billy Murray, Ben Selvin, Harry Faye, and the Golden Gate Orchestra. In 1923 alone, there were at least 18 different versions released on record. For those unfamiliar with the time period, it was very common for the same song to be recorded multiple times and not be fully associated with any one artist or band. The first recording of Yes, We Have No Bananas was released in June 1923, but the first performance of it was actually a full year before in June 1922 by Eddie Cantor in the Broadway revue Make It Snappy, making its debut alongside another soon-to-be popular song, The Sheik of Araby. But the recordings a year later are what made it a sensation. One of the most interesting things about the story of Yes, We Have No Bananas is that the two songwriters, Frank Silver and Irving Kahn, had never before published a song. This was their not-so-serious debut, and boy, what a debut it was. In a short interview for Time magazine, Silver discussed the origin of the hit song. He said, "About a year ago, my little orchestra was playing at a Long Island hotel. To and from the hotel, I was wont to stop at a fruit stand owned by a Greek, who began every sentence with yes. The jungle of his idiom haunted me and my friend Kahn. Finally, I wrote this verse, and Kahn fitted it with a tune." Around the time the song was written, there was an important change happening in the world of bananas unknown to most people. Panama disease was ravaging the banana crop in many of the tropical areas where they were being grown. This was the first sign of the eventual switchover in the 1950s to Cavendish bananas, which is the kind we're most familiar with now. In the 1920s, the dominant type of banana was the Gros Michel, aka Big Mike, which was eventually phased out in favor of the Cavendish variety, which was thought to be more resistant to Panama disease. Perhaps that Greek fruit seller's supplier was affected by the depletion of Gros Michel bananas, which is why he didn't have any, but we'll never know for sure. The first recording was released in June 1923 and quickly became a hit. On June 14th, Variety expressed bafflement when it reported that a startling 37,000 copies of the song were sold in a single day. The song even spread across the pond to Britain and France. And by August, Variety reported that 1 million copies of the sheet music had been sold. The title, or clever variants of it, were used all over the place. It was a smash hit so pervasive that it became ingrained in pop culture. The song's popularity even affected the banana market, and ironically caused a banana shortage in some East Coast cities. Quite a few stores did have bananas, but the song about having no bananas caused the stores that had bananas to not have them. What a confusing mess. The New York Times quoted one real fruit seller named Salvatore Scalco, who said about the fiasco, "Since they started singing that song, they have been eating so many bananas that they have made them scarce. We can't meet the demand, and like everything that's short, the price stays high." The Los Angeles Times similarly reported that, "In some of the eastern cities, bananas have advanced in price to 60 and 75 cents a dozen, and the demand for fruit is attributed to that pathetic ballad, 'Yes, we have no bananas.'" As often happens with crazes and fads, newspapers occasionally featured some stories involving what many were calling the banana song. Many of these stories might not have been newsworthy if they hadn't been connected with something that was trending. In one such story, a lawyer was annoyed that a storekeeper kept blaring the song incessantly. The lawyer obtained a summons and served it to the storekeeper, who allegedly punched the lawyer. There was another case in Washington, D.C., where one woman's neighbors complained that she was singing the song loudly all throughout the day and night, and took her to court for it. There were also some more mundane reports involving bananas, the song, or both. For example, at a merchandise fair, there was an amusing novelty toy of a yellow duck that quacked the song. At the same event, some salesmen used realistic wax bananas as a gimmick in their booth, no doubt influenced by the song's popularity. With the popularity of Yes, We Have No Bananas, one musical producer named George W. Lederer got the rights to use the title for a stage play. The story involved two rival merchants who start feuding with each other after one of them monopolizes bananas so that the other one can't buy any for his store. The rest of the story was vaguely hinted at in Variety like this. The second act is in a banana grove, the third in the produce exchange in New York, where bananas have taken on the trading importance of wheat or sugar, with the scientific discovery that the banana is rich in alcoholic content, which causes a rising market. I bet you didn't expect that Yes, We Have No Bananas could be connected with prohibition, but there you go. Even though the play was reported to debut in about a month, I couldn't find anything at all about it online, so it looks like it never got off the ground. And here's a fun fact. George W. Lederer was the father of Pepe Lederer, who you might remember from my video on Louise Brooks, so that's a random connection. After this, there was some litigation over unauthorized use of the title by a low-budget movie titled Yes, We Want No Bananas, but I couldn't really find much else about that either. Yes, We Have No Bananas was an undeniable smash hit, and music publishers tried to think of a way to capitalize on it further with the cooperation of the original songwriters, Frank Silver and Irving Kahn. The result was a sequel song titled I've Got the Yes, We Have No Bananas Blues, an obviously self-referential song. The lyrics talk about how the original song is so ubiquitous that the narrator can't escape it, and it drives him crazy. In this sequel song, 80 years before Gwen Stefani spelled out bananas in Hollaback Girl, Eddie Cantor spelled out banana, the singular form, in I've Got the Yes, We Have No Bananas Blues.
C-A-N-A-N-A, yes, no, take 'em away.
It's bizarre how something like that had to happen twice in apparently isolated instances. Or maybe Gwen Stefani is a big Eddie Cantor fan, who knows? Unsurprisingly, I've Got the Yes, We Have No Bananas Blues didn't sell nearly as well as the original Yes, We Have No Bananas, and certainly didn't become big in its own right. The reason is pretty clear. It just wasn't as catchy and bouncy. It sounds more forced and less spontaneous. and I'm sure that many people could tell that it was just a cash grab, and were uninterested in it because of that. But maybe you disagree. So let's listen to a short clip of each, and you can judge for yourself.
We have an old-fashioned tomato and a Long Island potato, but yes, we have an old banana. We have an old bananas today. I've got the yes, we have no banana blue. I've got the blue, and when I hear it, oh how I fear it. It's just like hearing bad news. It hasn't got a bit of sense, and I go wild when they commence.
And I just want to clarify that the sequel song wasn't really a flop, it just paled in comparison to the original, and mostly just piggybacked off its success. This is more of a side note, but one other 1920s novelty song that I've known for many years is I've Never Seen a Straight Banana from 1926. It's not directly related to Yes We Have No Bananas, but it must have taken some inspiration from it. I mean, how many other popular songs about bananas could there possibly have been? So why was Yes We Have No Bananas as popular as it was? This is a question that observers in 1923 pondered endlessly. How was it so different from other silly novelty songs or other standard pop songs? It's impossible to answer definitively, but let's go through a few possible contributing factors. The first factor was radio. There aren't set lists of all the songs performed on all radio programs from 1923, but it's almost guaranteed that Yes We Have No Bananas got quite a bit of airplay. Radio had skyrocketed in popularity in mid-1922 and continued throughout 1923 and beyond. Billy Jones, one half of the famous Happiness Boys, recorded an especially popular version, and the Happiness Boys were already very popular radio performers. Part of what might have caused the initial spark was their radio popularity, though I'm not sure if they ever sang it together on their program. But other stars had similar leverage they could pass on to a song, so radio by itself couldn't have been the only reason. Another factor is that people in the 1920s, well, in America at least, seemed to love absurdity. The various crazes of the 1920s were often very weird and/or eccentric, and that's a big part of why they became big. Sensationalistic things were big news then. One of the absurdities was the fact that, of all things, bananas were the main feature of the song. Of course, bananas are just an unassuming piece of fruit, but making such a big deal out of them for humor is something that many of us in the meme age can probably identify with. Taking something very normal and giving it way more importance than it has any business having for a joke still happens often now, just in slightly different ways. And bananas already had a connection with silliness in the form of the classic slip on a banana peel gag, which had already been done many times by the time the song came out. I don't know how much this comedic connection has to do with the song's popularity, but I feel like there's something there, even if it's subconscious. Another of these absurdities is the grammatical quandary the song presented. I know that might sound a bit confusing for a lot of people when I put it that way, but we've all probably been in such a quandary before. I'll present a quote from Time magazine again to explain further. The root of the matter here seems to lie in a common grammatical perplexity, a perplexity over which many a person stumbles in common speech. How can you answer in one word, yes or no, to the question, "You have no bananas?" Often you will hear someone stammer, "Yes, no." The answer might reasonably be, "No, we have no bananas," with a direct logical opposite, "Yes, we have no bananas." But the contradiction in the phrase is ludicrous. A foreigner using it at all times and without distinction, it becomes grotesquely funny. The much more so because it catches at a perplexity in the structure of the language, at a perplexity with which almost everyone has had conscious or unconscious experience. So basically, this grammatical quandary was relatable to a lot of people, and I think that's still true. I can think of quite a few times in my own experience when I wasn't sure if I should answer with yes or no, and I'm sure most of you have too. The New York Times published a long article about why Yes We Have No Bananas so captivated everyone. It concluded that simple explanations like deft marketing and vapidness were not enough to explain this phenomenon. The article is very thorough and a bit unnecessarily academic sounding, perhaps playing up the absurdity of it all. Sometimes I'm not sure if some parts are tongue-in-cheek or not, but anyway, here it is. There is the momentum of incessant repetition, ranging from the force of an advertisement seen occasionally to the hypnotic power of a revolving disc. There is imitation, the desire to be in style, to wear red sandals. There is emulation which causes men and women to find a faint and indefinable, but still distinct, reflection of success and even the remotest relation to success. The song is making lots of money. Merely to sing it gives an association with money. And at last, the time comes when no motive seems needed, but the numbed residue of the public is simply overcome by weight of numbers. It is not necessary for Bananas to direct its full battery of appeals on each separate devotee. There are individuals on whom none of these factors are potent, but who still succumb. Others are moved by lesser impulses. Perhaps familiarity with the title phrase. It seems to have been in use, though not widely current, before the song was written. Perhaps it is a musical familiarity, a phrase that sounds like one in some other song. Or it may be the rhythm or symbolism or the sense of reality in having heard that the nubbin of the song is some real answer by a real fruiterer. According to the publisher, it was. All that is necessary, however, is that the appeal be effective on 2 or 3 key individuals in a crowd. That's only an important snippet of the article, but I'll probably upload a read-through of the whole thing sometime to supplement this video. Yes We Have No Bananas had a longer legacy than most novelty songs, which usually die out very quickly, and the creators get a quick buck out of it. Even my parents, both baby boomers, who were born over 30 years after the song was released, know it well. Maybe that's because Spike Jones had a hit with it in 1950, when their parents might have picked it up. Or maybe it was passed down directly from those who were there during the initial craze. Even as late as 1977, the Muppets sang it on TV, and there are plenty of other times the song was featured throughout the 100 years since its creation. So, to review, I think the factors for the song's popularity were that it was released right after radio became mainstream, it was absurd, it was relatable, and of course, it was catchy. I also think that people probably loved to shout yes at the beginning of every chorus, so I'll throw in audience participation as a bonus. Maybe its popularity will never make logical sense to many people, but it doesn't have to. It was just a silly summer hit song about bananas. But whatever the case, it was a fun ride while it lasted, and it remains one of the most iconic songs of the Jazz Age generation. And I think that just about does it for this video. When I started, I really didn't expect it to be this long. I thought it might be like 5 minutes, but I definitely didn't expect I could talk about a novelty banana song for over 18 minutes. But I'm glad I did, and I hope you are too. And if you don't know, I started a Patreon a few months ago, so if you like my content, please consider becoming a patron for $5 a month. This money will go toward future content involving real artifacts from the 1920s, and you'll also be able to see exclusive videos where I talk about my collection of historical stuff. The link for that is in the description. Well, that's all for now, all you sheiks and gals out there, but stay tuned for more tales from the Jazz Age.